My name is Charles Brown, and I'm Director of Libraries here in Arlington County. And I'm delighted to welcome you to the first installment of the library's Books, People, and So Much More. We have a stellar lineup of presenters today. I'm going to have a conversation with noted author and Arlington resident Barbara Ann Porte. There will be a book talk presented by Glen Carlin Branch, Assistant Branch Librarian and Children's Specialist, Kay Brito. I'll have a conversation with Christy Bevan, head of the Central Library's Children's Room, on the value of library use for children. And finally, we'll have a delightful storytelling presentation by the assistant head of the Children's Room at the Central Library, Diane Martin, and her effervescent and always faithful sidekick, Flora the Flamingo. I think it's going to be quite a show. We begin today with a conversation with Barbara Porte. Barbara's a native of New York City. She attended the Iowa State University and received her undergraduate degree from Michigan State University, and went on to receive a master's degree in library service from the Long Island University. Barbara has worked as a librarian with the Nassau Library System and published her first work in Harry's Visit in 1983. Welcome, Barbara. We're delighted to have you with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
I guess my first question, since this is an Arlington-based show, is to ask you how long you've lived in Arlington and what brought you here initially.
I've been living here about a year. It was a year in April. And before that, I was living in Tennessee for about a year, and before that, New York. And I came here basically because of my husband's job.
Great. One of the things I wanted to ask you, I noted in preparing for this interview that as a child growing up in New York City, your initial interests were either in the career interest revolved around becoming either an ornithologist, a zoologist, or a farmer. And I guess I found that interesting for a kid from New York City, since I think that most people would agree that New York City is one of the great cities of the world, but not necessarily one that we associate with either nature or agriculture. So can you tell us a little bit about your early career interests?
Well, I always liked animals, and I still like animals. And even as a child, I always planned that I would write one day. But in my family, we knew that wasn't a good way to earn a living. So I went out to Iowa, and I did major in agriculture, thinking I might use it for veterinarian medicine at the time. But all my relatives wanted to know, why is Barbara going out to Iowa and studying farming? And of course, when I was back in New York, and also I lived in Europe for a couple of years, then it wasn't a very practical choice. And I went back to school and became a librarian. But when I was writing, farm animals always pop up in my books. So now I tell all my relatives that I'm putting my college education to a good purpose.
Great. How did you become involved in writing? Was it a natural outgrowth of your career in librarianship, or did something else
factor into that? In my family, we always wrote. We were encouraged to write, and my sisters both also write, although they haven't written published books. And so writing just seemed a natural thing to do. I always encourage children to write also, even just to keep a journal or write letters to relatives.
I know that you have written for a large number of age groups, I guess for almost every age group, but your focus, your emphasis has been on writing for children. Why did you choose children as your target audience?
Well, I didn't necessarily choose children. I love stories, and really stories are the main impetus for everything I write. And I've written stories for adults which were in literary magazines, but there's a very small market for that kind of writing. In children's books, if you tell a good story, then your chances of selling it are quite good. And also, there's a tremendous pleasure in writing a children's book because in some ways they're timeless. The picture book Madeline, for instance, celebrated its more than 50th anniversary. And they don't go out of date the way an adult book does. They don't depend on the circumstances you're living in. And so I enjoy the children's stories as much as anything else I write. And I do switch off. I usually write I write one thing and then I write another thing.
I know that you've incorporated into some of your works some of your adventures as a child. And you've also brought into your works members of your own family. Could you tell our audience a little about some of your childhood adventures that ended up in the pages of your books? And Also
Well,
how you've involved your sisters.
yes, my relatives are in all my writing, just about. And now I say it's because my relatives visit me so often that I really don't have time to pay attention to anything else. So if I didn't write about them, I wouldn't have anything to write about. But also, my oldest sister in particular gave me wonderful adventures because she was always getting caught in things, getting her head caught in a chair or her foot caught on an escalator. So I write about her a lot. One of the things that happens is I have 3 picture books that are going to be coming out, and I joke that they're my picture book autobiography, but they're really all of our childhoods. And one story I have in it is about a child jumping off a diving board and almost drowning because she forgot her rubber tube. And for years I thought that happened to my sister, and when I told her about it, she said, no, she said, that happened to you. And that's the way it is. You always forget who did this thing really happen to.
How do they feel about being involved in your work?
You know, I am not sure. They always seem very proud of my writing. And in fact, I don't know if you all can see this, but it's a pig with a sailboat. And my sister loves my younger sister loves my book, Ruth Ann and Her Pig. And now she's always sending me little pig ornaments and pig puppets, and my house is filled with pigs. I'm not that fond of pigs, but I like her presence. And so I don't think they mind. Sometimes I worry, I think if they're going to write children's books, whose life will they use?
Right. Now, in addition to your works that have been geared toward children, I know that you've also written for young adults and adults as well. Can you tell our viewers a little about those activities?
Well, the book for the oldest children that I wrote was called I Only Made Up the Roses. And I thought I might read a page from that only because it's set in Virginia, and also it's typical of the stories I write in that it has chickens in them. A lot of my books wind up having chickens or pigs or cows. The first paragraph in this came straight out of a newspaper clipping, which I had saved for quite some time, and it was the truth. That same spring when I, Sidra, turned 17, 250,000 chickens in Virginia keeled over dead from heat prostration. And Granddad, who was out and back behind his house, feeding the dozen or so that he still kept, had his first and final heart attack. His funeral was 3 days later. It conveys no disrespect to say that Granddad and chickens have often been connected in my mind. One of the first stories I ever heard that I remember was one that Granddad told me about chickens. He had grown up on a farm. Helping his mother and grandmother pluck them was one of his first chores. After they'd been plucked, he explained, his mother would singe the pin feathers off. The first time I heard her, he said, I thought she said sing, sing the pin feathers off. For years and years afterward, I carried in my head a picture of my mother and my grandmother, a plucked chicken held between them, both of them singing until its final feathers fell out.
Oh, that's wonderful. And the title of that book again?
I Only Made Up the Roses.
Great. Available at the Arlington County Public Library. Let me ask you a little about what you would consider to be your favorite book and why. And I should probably preface that by saying that I'm a somewhat emotional reader myself, and I love your character, Harry. Harry, to me, is almost every child. I think regardless of culture, he's a universal child in terms of the way he thinks and the way he views the world. So Harry is my favorite character of yours.
Thank you.
But who is your favorite character? Or what is your favorite work and why?
Well, I've heard authors say that it's like asking a mother which is their favorite child. And also some authors will say, I like the one that I'm working on the best. But I think what it is you have each book is your favorite for a different reason. I Only Made Up the Roses is my favorite for the reason that it's a story about an interracial family, and that's what I live in. And for me, it was painting portraits of people who are similar to people that I know and love. And a reviewer said about the family that they were a group of resourceful, intelligent, and persistent people. And that made me very happy. The other book that I sometimes think is a favorite is Taxicab Tales. And the reason for that is when you think up a book, you have a particular idea how it's going to turn out. And it very seldom does. Almost always, the final book is very different from how you envisioned it. But for some reason, this book turned out almost exactly the way I had first planned it. So that was also a pleasure for me.
Great. If we could talk for a minute just about my favorite character of yours, Harry. I know that you've indicated in interviews that he's not based on any particular child, but the situations that he often finds himself in, how do you come up with those? How do those evolve?
I think in some ways, I have a very bad memory for things that happened. I always have to check with my sisters, for instance. But I remember exactly how I felt as a child. And I think maybe that's where Harry comes from. Some things are just natural. Having been a librarian for so many years, of course, Harry losing his library card was one. I always knew that his Aunt Rose was going to get married, but I waited until all the children in the family had done it so I would know what was what and how to plan a wedding. So things like that come along. But basically, you use what's around. If I had a different kind of life, I guess I'd write a different sort of book.
I see. I understand that one of the works that you're currently working on will revolve around farming. Can you tell us a little about that work and how it came to be?
You're probably thinking of Chickens.
Yes.
And actually, that's an interesting thing how that came to be. I had visited relatives in Hampton, and Hampton University was having an art show of instructors. And I went down and I saw a picture I just loved, and it was a picture of a chicken and the red sun behind it. And in fact, I used that picture as the basis of one story in a book called A Turkey Drive and Other Tales, which if we have time, I'll tell you more about.
Okay.
And I wanted to do a book to go with that artist's work. His name is Greg Henry, and he is from Guyana. And he did give me a lot of pictures to use, but they were all of chickens. And he happened to mention that he had grown up on a chicken farm. And I had all these pictures of chickens in my house, and I couldn't think of a story to go with them. And then I finally did a story, and it's about a man who's an artist who only draws chickens.
Oh, wow.
Says chickens, chickens, nothing but chickens. And he is supposed to be doing the illustrations.
Great.
So
Now, chickens, how long, when did the idea first come to you? And how long will it take for that book to be published? What's the time?
When you
frame?
finish a book, usually, well, for children's books, the shortest it takes is about a year. If they have a lot of illustrations, they can take up to 3 years. I have a book coming out called When Grandma Almost Fell Off the Mountain and Other Stories, and the artist got very enthusiastic, Maxie Chambliss, and she spent a year doing research. It's set in the late 30s. And she rented movies, and she went to museums and so on, so it took quite a while.
Great. Let me ask you something about other authors. Do you have a favorite author? And also, what author or authors has most influenced you in your
Well,
writing?
I never like to answer about favorite, because then you always wind up leaving a favorite out. I have
That's
lots
true.
of favorite authors. And writing for children now are really some top writers in this country, and the same thing with illustrators. And for children, the best thing to do is go to their local public library and ask their children's librarian to help them find books. As a child, I loved the book Jungle Book by Rudyard Kipling, and I also loved the book The Wonderful Adventures of Nils by Selma Lagerlof, who I learned as an adult was the first woman to ever win the Nobel Prize for Literature. And both those books are still available, and they still hold up. They're very good. Now when you ask children, most of them tell you they know the Jungle Book, but unfortunately it's only because they've seen film strips or something.
I'm sure that some of our viewers today, especially our younger viewers, may be thinking that they might like to follow you in terms of becoming a published author themselves later in their lives. What advice would you give to aspiring young writers today?
Well, I think you have to love to read, and you have to read a lot. I read all the time, and I think you also have to write a lot, because like everything else, if you practice it, you get better. One of the best ways to help children learn to write well is to encourage them to tell you stories, either stories that they've learned or just a narrative about what's happened to them, because they build up a lot of language that way. I find myself now, because of the social conditions we live in, going around saying to children all the time, you have to remember you may not earn a living that way. Stay in school. And also be persistent. You have to believe in yourself, and you have to keep at it.
Barbara, I'm sure that many of our viewers have unique experiences in terms of how they were introduced to our library system, but I think yours might rank right up there with being one of the most unique. Would you mind telling our viewers how you first became acquainted with the services of the Arlington County Public Library?
Well, when I first moved to this area, I had a letter from a child in Iowa about my book, Ruth Ann and Her Pig, and I was really enthusiastic because having been in Iowa and having learned about pigs in college, so I wrote him back. But the letter was returned to me and it said no such address. Well, he had written his address twice very carefully, and I thought it was very unlikely he would have made a mistake 2 times. So I tried to check it with the post office, and they said that the zip code and everything was correct. Then I called the Arlington Central Library reference to find out if they had a phone book for Iowa. I think the city was Cedar Rapids. And the librarian said no, that they didn't, but it turned out she was also from Iowa, which was a surprise to me, and she was just as enthusiastic as I was to be sure that he got a letter back. So she got me the name of the children's librarian in the library in that city, and I telephoned her, and she said that the little boy, that the address was correct and that he was a borrower. And so I sent the letter to her, and she got it to the child. So that was, I don't go to that much trouble all the time for fan letters, but...
What a great story. And I think another indication of just how hard the Arlington County Public Library tries to meet the needs of its users. Thank you again, Barbara, for joining us today. It was a delightful experience for me as well as for our viewers, I'm sure. The next segment of our program will be a book talk to be presented by Kate Brito, Assistant Branch Manager and Children's Librarian at the Glen Carlin Branch Library. So stay tuned.
The Arlington Public Library has something for everyone. Children, teens, adult readers, students of all ages, seniors, new readers, old readers, business people, the blind and visually handicapped, job hunters, the homebound, viewers and listeners, historians. The Arlington Public Library has something just right for you. Visit the Central Library or one of the 6 branches soon. Check us out.
Hi. If you attend Ashlawn or Glen Carlin School, you may remember seeing me at your school when I came to talk about good books you might want to read. Today I'm going to tell you about another one. It's Wanted Mud Blossom by Betsy Beyer. Have you ever had a guinea pig or hamster in your classroom? Who took care of it on the weekend? Well, Junior Blossom had a turn at taking care of his class hamster, Scooty, and he's afraid that his granddad's dog, Mud, has eaten it. If you've ever read any of Betsy Beyer's books about the Blossom family, you know that there are many laughs ahead as this funny family tries to solve the mystery of the missing hamster. As you can see from the cover, Mud looks nervous. Is he guilty? Well, Junior Blossom finds himself accused of the crime of not taking good care of the hamster, and Mud is not to blame because he was just being himself. The Blossom family holds a trial on their front porch using a gavel as a hammer. Junior's sister, Maggie, is his lawyer, and their neighbor, Ralphie, is Mud's lawyer. Junior's brother, Vern, and his friend are the jury, and Granddad is the judge. The trial has a surprise ending when Ralphie brings out Scooty's cage. What is in the cage? If you want to read a book that'll make you laugh, try Wanted Mud Blossom by Betsy Beyer. See you at the library.
Welcome back. I've been joined by Christy Bevan, the head of the Central Library's Children's Room. Christy has been a staff member with the Arlington County Public Library for almost 10 years now and has done an extraordinary job in a variety of roles. Welcome, Christy.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Can you tell our viewers a little about children's services in general in Arlington County, the range of children's services that we offer?
Well, we offer services to children of all ages, and we have a wide variety of things. Of course, the basic thing that we offer is books for every age level. And we start with books that children can chew on, the real tactile books, the cardboard books that we keep for the very young children who are just beginning to sit up and need to learn to manipulate a book, all the way up through ninth graders about who are doing homework assignments, who need help with science fair projects. We have picture books for parents to read to young children. We have older chapter books for children who are just beginning to read and are proud of their accomplishments. And we have novels for older children, and as I said, homework assignments. We have encyclopedias that you can check out, and we have encyclopedias and reference books that you have to use in the library. Other resources that are a little bit different, we have audio cassettes. The Central Library is just starting a books on tape collection for children, and that'll be something new to look forward to with the new Central Library. But we do have a large audio cassette collection that includes music and read-along book cassette packages and that sort of thing. A large one at Central and smaller ones in the branches. We have computers available for children to use, and those are located at different places in the county, but those are computers that have educational software that go along with them so that they feel like they're playing a game, but they're really learning something while they do it. And I think probably the other major thing that we offer, besides just personalized service to children to help them find the information or the recreational reading that they need, is programs. We do a lot of different kinds of programs for children, starting with about age 2 all the way up through elementary school age. Probably the most basic program is the story hour that we would offer. And we try to gear those really very carefully for different age groups, so that the 2-year-old story hour is quite different from the 3-year-old or the 4s and the 5s. Those programs are offered at a variety of times, usually in the morning before kids get too tired and cranky. And we do afternoon programs often for elementary school age children, some after-school programs. We have film programs. We sometimes have craft programs. We'll have author programs occasionally with people like Barbara Ann Porte, who will come and talk to children about writing and what they do, what they've written, and children really like that kind of thing. In the summer, we have a lot of programs for the elementary school age children who are out of school and looking for something to do, and those programs really are to attract them to the library. We hope to load them up with books while they're there, and we're usually pretty successful at doing that. We try to have programs that are related somehow to books and libraries. Even if it's a puppet show, it is often a puppet show that comes from a book or from a story, and we're able to relate that to the books. Our Summer Quest reading program always draws a large contingent of children to register for it. That is a self-directed reading program where they sign up and keep track of what they've read over the summer and try to set themselves a goal for reading.
Christy, can you tell us just briefly what studies have indicated is the primary value of ongoing library use by children, beginning at a very early age?
Well, I would say that the value is that one of the values is that when children stop reading for any reason, say over the summer when they're no longer required to read in school, they very often lose a significant amount of their reading skills. And reading is the basis of all education. So if you drop back even 1 grade level, if you're in 3rd grade and you come out of 3rd grade reading on a 3rd grade reading level, by the next fall you might be back to a 2nd grade reading level, which means you spend half the year catching back up to where you were. So continuous reading builds that skill. It's just like a muscle that you have to use all the time. And we want to help make that a reality for all children. I think also one of the values that we don't tend to see so much right off the top is the fact that if you start children coming to the library very early, it becomes a place where they are comfortable, where they know that there are people to help them, where they feel competent in the environment. And when they're comfortable and competent, then they will continue to come throughout the rest of their life, and they will pass that on to their children, so that the library really becomes a lifelong learning institution and tradition, a family tradition that will not die out.
Thank you very much. That was very well stated. Our next presentation will be a story that will be presented by the assistant head of the children's room at the Central Library, Diane Martin, and as I indicated earlier, her faithful sidekick, Flora the Flamingo. So stay tuned.
excitement is building. Arlington County Public Library is enlarging and renovating the Central Library. We're keeping the best of the old building and adding much more space. But for now, there will be a little chaos. Because Central Library has half its normal space during construction, some services have moved to the branches. Aurora Hills now has the business room. Columbia Pike is home to the Virginia Room, the foreign language collection, college career and job materials, as well as the audiovisual collections. Talking books are now at the courthouse. Shirlington, Glen Carlin, Westover, and Cherrydale still offer their regular services and collections. Now is a perfect time to visit Arlington County Central Library or one of the 6 branches. Check us out.
Hi, my name is Diane Martin. I'm one of the librarians over at the Central Library, and this is my friend Flora Flamingo. Friend, I'm the most popular librarian over there. Also, the most beautiful. Oh, Flora, there you go, always boasting, aren't you? Oh, my. Looks like you're ready for the beach. I'm going to the beach this weekend, but first I want to hear a good story. Well, Flora, we're going to tell one today that comes from Africa, your home. It's based on Who's in Rabbit's House by Verna Ardema. Oh, great. Now, do you think you can sit over here? You think you can? You think you know how to sit for story hour? Once or twice, she's gotten so excited that she's fallen off her chair. So I hope that doesn't happen today. You sit right there, Flora. Maybe you can help me. Long, long ago, Rabbit lived on a bluff in Africa overlooking a lake. Now, every evening, she liked to sit in front of her home and watch the animals that they would pass and go to the lake to drink. But one afternoon, when Rabbit came back to her house, some creature was inside. I am the long one. I eat trees and trample on elephants. Go away, or I will trample on you. But that's my house, said Rabbit. Get out. And Rabbit started banging on the door. Bam, bam, bam. Go away, or I will trample on you, the voice said. Well, Rabbit sat there wondering what to do when along came a little frog. Excuse me, she said. I think I can help you. You, said the Rabbit. What can you do? You're so small. Go away. Well, now the frog would have gone completely away, but instead she hid behind some leaves, for just then she saw Leopard come along. Why, Rabbit, said Leopard, why is it you're not sitting in front of your house tonight? Oh, there's someone in my house and they won't get out, said Rabbit. Oh, let me see, said Leopard. Who's in Rabbit's house? I am the long one. I eat trees and trample on elephants. Go away, or I will trample on you. We'll see about that, said the Leopard. I'm going to scratch Rabbit's house to bits, and you with it. And Leopard ran over and started scratching on Rabbit's house. Oh, no, no, Leopard, said Rabbit. Please, that's my house you're ruining. Don't you want that creature out of there? Well, I want my house left. All right, said Leopard. And Leopard went off down to the lake. Poor Rabbit. She jumped up on top of her house and tried to patch up all those scratch marks. As she was doing it, along came Elephant. Now, Little Frog was still watching from behind the leaves, and she had a big grin on her face. Why, Rabbit, what are you doing? Said Elephant. Oh, well, there's something in my house, and Leopard scratched it all to bits trying to get that creature out, and now I'm fixing it. Oh, said Elephant, who's in Rabbit's house? I am the long one. I eat trees and trample on elephants. Go away, or I will trample on you. Trample on elephants, did you say? Said the Elephant. Why, I'm going to trample on you. and Elephant began tramping across Rabbit's yard and up to her house. "Oh, no, please," said Rabbit, "don't trample on my house." "Don't you want to be rid of that creature in there?" asked Elephant. "Yes, but I want my house." "All right," said Elephant. And so Elephant went on her way down to the lake. Poor Rabbit. She went and she got her rake and her hoe and began to fix up her yard where Elephant had trampled it. And the little frog, why, the little frog started to laugh out loud. Just then, along came a rhinoceros. "Why, Rabbit, whatever are you doing? Are you putting a garden in your front yard?" "Oh, no, I'm just trying to fix up where Elephant trampled on it. There's some creature in my house, and Elephant was going to trample my yard and my house and everything to get rid of that creature." "Oh," said the rhinoceros, "who's in Rabbit's house?" "I am the long one. I eat trees and trample on elephants. Go away, or I will trample on you." "Oh, we'll see about that," said Rhinoceros, "because I'm going to get Rabbit's house on my horn and toss you and Rabbit's house into the lake." And Rhinoceros started charging across the yard, ka-rum, ka-rum, ka-rum. But poor Rabbit, did she want her house thrown into the lake? No. So she jumped up on Rhinoceros's horn. Rhinoceros, thinking he had the house, swung his horn and tossed Rabbit into the lake. Ker-splash! The little frog came up and said, "Excuse me, that was Rabbit you put into the lake." "Not Rabbit's house?" "Oh, no," said Rhinoceros. And he went charging off, ka-rum, 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 down to the lake. Now, lucky it was for Rabbit that Elephant was still drinking there. She reached out her trunk and got poor Rabbit and pulled Rabbit out of the water. "You've certainly caused us enough trouble," she said to Rabbit. And Rabbit came home and sat so sadly next to her house. Little Frog came up again. "Excuse me," she said. "I think I really can help you." "What would you do?" said Rabbit. "We're going to scare that creature out." And Frog took a big green leaf and put it around her mouth and started to talk. "I am the spitting cobra. My poison will blind you, and I am coming in under Rabbit's door, and I'm going to spit my poison in your eyes." "Oh, no, no," cried a little voice. "Please don't, please. I'm coming out." And out from Rabbit's house came a little tiny caterpillar. "It was only a caterpillar," said Rabbit. "Only a caterpillar." And Frog began to laugh. But then she called all the other animals back, and they said it was only a caterpillar. But Caterpillar was saying, "Where's that spitting cobra? Oh, please, please don't let that spitting cobra near me. It was only a joke." And Rabbit said, that spitting cobra was Frog. Afterwards, all of the animals went home. The little caterpillar went up a tree. Rabbit sat in front of her house, as she always did. And Frog, why, she laughed and laughed and laughed. She may be laughing still.
Well, believe it or not, that's the conclusion of the first installment of Books, People, and Libraries. I hope that you've enjoyed our presentation as much as we've enjoyed presenting it. In a few months, our next installment will feature a tour of the recently expanded and completely renovated Central Library. So watch for it soon. And again, thank you for viewing this show. Goodbye.